The last emperor stood in this very chamber, placing his hand on this very throne. Let it end with us, he said to the emptier the world shifted around Hana like water. One moment she sat on the throne in the Prime Nexus. The next she stood on a battlefield under a red sky. The simulation felt completely real. She could smell smoke, feel heat from burning buildings, hear the screams of the wounded. First scenario, the final Guardian's voice echoed around her. You have full control of the Nexus network. The consortium has activated the erasure protocol. In 30 minutes, every human in the galaxy will die. You have enough firepower to destroy the consortium's core worlds and disable the weapon. What do you do? Hana looked around the battlefield. She saw human soldiers fighting against consortium forces, saw civilians caught in the crossfire. Her hands shook as she realized she held a command tablet with a single button. Retaliate. If I destroy their core worlds, millions of innocent aliens die, Hana said. Yes, but if you do nothing, billions of humans die. Choose. Hana's finger hovered over the button. Every instinct screamed at her to press it. To save her people, to destroy those who would destroy them. But she thought about the last emperor's words, about the cycle of violence that had destroyed the first empire. No, she said, lowering the tablet. I won't kill billions to save billions. That's how the cycle continues. I'd rather find a way to disable the weapon without genocide. The battlefield dissolved. The final Guardian spoke again, and Hana heard approval in its voice. You chose mercy over vengeance. But mercy has costs. Let us continue. The second scenario formed around her. She stood in a council chamber filled with human representatives from across the galaxy. They argued, shouted, demanded action. On screens behind them, images showed consortium ships blockading human colonies, arresting leaders, imposing harsh restrictions. Second scenario, the final Guardian said. You have activated the Nexus Network's knowledge archives. Humans now have access to advanced medicine, technology, and science. The consortium demands you close the archives and submit to their authority. If you refuse, they will impose sanctions that will starve millions of humans on border colonies. If you comply, you preserve peace, but humanity remains subjugated. What do you do? A representative stood, pointing at Hana. You have the power to free us. Use it, we've been slaves long enough. Another representative argued back. If we resist, they'll kill millions. We've survived this long by keeping our heads down. Hana felt the weight of their expectations crushing her. She looked at the two options presented on the council room's main screen. Submit or resist. Neither, Hana said finally. I share the knowledge with everyone, not just humans. If the consortium's member species have access to the same advances, they can't justify restricting us. We rise together, not at someone else's expense. But some species will use that knowledge to harm others, the final Guardian said. You cannot control how technology spreads. I know. But hoarding power for the greater good is how the First Empire justified its tyranny. Knowledge should be free, even if it's dangerous. That's the only way forward. The council chamber faded. The final Guardian's voice held something like warmth now. You chose principle over pragmatism. Many would call that foolish. But it is also noble. One more test remains. The third scenario formed around Hana, and this one hurt the most. She stood in a small home, simple and clean. Toyun sat at a table, older now, tired. Across from him sat a young woman who looked like Hana but wasn't. Perhaps a daughter. Perhaps just a future version of what could be. Third scenario, the final Guardian said. You have stabilized the galaxy. Humans have equality. Peace has been maintained for 20 years. But the Nexus Network's power remains in your bloodline. Your descendants will inherit absolute authority over technologies that could destroy civilizations. Some argue the genetic lock should be removed, giving control to democratic councils. But doing so risks the wrong people gaining access. What do you do? Hana watched the scene play out. The young woman, her hypothetical daughter, argued for keeping the genetic lock. Someone has to be the Guardian. Better us than a council that could be corrupted? Doyen shook his head. No one person should have that much power. Not even us. Not even with good intentions. Hana felt tears on her face. She knew the right answer, but it meant giving up something precious. It meant trusting that humanity had truly learned its lesson. Remove the genetic lock, she said. Build a system where the Nexus Network is controlled by consensus, not bloodline. Put in safeguards and checks and balances. It will be messy and imperfect, but tyranny is always clean and perfect until it destroys everything. The final guardian was silent for a long moment. The simulation faded, and Hana found herself back on the throne in the Prime Nexus. Jiwon, Doyun, and Mirai stood around her, concerned. Apparently no time had passed in the real world. "You have passed the test," the final guardian said, and its voice filled the chamber. "You have chosen mercy over vengeance, principle over pragmatism, and democracy over dynasty. You have proven that humanity can learn. The Prime Nexus is yours to command, but I will help you implement the safeguards you envisioned." The throne came alive beneath Hana. Every screen in the chamber activated, showing the full scope of the Nexus network. Thousands of facilities across hundreds of galaxies, all waiting for her command. The power was intoxicating and terrifying. "There's just one problem," Mirai said, checking her tablet. Her face was pale. "While you were being tested, the consortium found us. High Arbiter Kilmara just transmitted a message. He's giving you 1 hour to surrender before he activates the erasure protocol." The weight of the moment pressed down on Hana. She looked at her friends, at Jiwon, who had spent her life preserving history, at Mirai, who had given up everything to reveal the truth, at Doyun, who had never left her side despite all the danger. "Can we disable the erasure protocol from here?" she asked. "Possibly," the final guardian replied. "But doing so would require activating military systems across the galaxy. It would be seen as an act of war. What about showing them what I learned here? The history? The lessons? The reason the Empire fell? They already know the history. They simply do not believe you will choose differently than your ancestors." Hana closed her eyes. Then she opened them, her decision made. "Final Guardian, I want to activate the Nexus network. Full activation. But I want to broadcast everything. All the historical records, all the lessons from the fracturing, everything. Let every species in the galaxy see what really happened. Let them see that we're not trying to rebuild the Empire. The consortium will still view this as a threat. Maybe, but maybe some of them will listen. Maybe enough of them will question why their leaders have been lying for thousands of years." Hana stood up from the throne. "And I want to make one more change. Remove my genetic lock on the most dangerous systems. Transfer control to a multi-species council with representation from humans and consortium members both. Make it so nobody can use the Nexus network as a weapon without consensus." Mirai stared at her. "You're giving up your power? Right now? When we're about to be erased from existence? I'm proving we're not the threat they think we are. If I hold on to absolute power to fight them, I become exactly what they fear. This is the only way." Jiwon was crying openly now. "It's brilliant. Risky and insane, but brilliant." Doyun just hugged her. "I hope you know what you're doing." "I don't," Hana admitted. "But I don't think anyone does. We're all just trying our best." She placed both hands on the throne's armrests. The emblem patterns blazed with light. "Final Guardian, do it. Full activation. Broadcast everything. And implement the control transfer protocols. Acknowledged. Beginning full activation sequence." Across the galaxy, every dormant facility from the first human empire came online simultaneously. Ancient stations, platforms, archives, and installations that had slept for 11,000 years suddenly woke up. But they didn't arm weapons or raise shields. They opened their databanks. Historical records flooded into public networks. Images of the First Empire's glory and its terrible fall. Records of the debate before the fracturing, showing humans deliberately choosing to destroy their own power. The last Emperor's final message preserved for this exact moment. "We were wrong to take so much power. Learn from our mistake." Hana's message went out alongside the historical data, transmitted to every inhabited world. "I am Hana, recognized by the royal genetic markers. I activated the Nexus network not to conquer but to survive. I am now relinquishing absolute control. The Nexus network will be managed by consensus, not by any one person or species. We ask only for a chance to prove that humans have learned from the past. We don't want an empire. We just want to live." On the eternal dawn, alarms blared. Mirai checked her tablet and gasped. "The erasure protocol. It's powering down. Kelmara just issued a hold order." "Are you sure?" Hana asked, barely daring to hope. "Multiple consortium worlds are refusing to support activation. The historical broadcasts are causing chaos in their governments. Member species are demanding answers about why this history was hidden." Mirai looked up, tears in her eyes. "It's working. They're standing down. But the final guardian's voice held a warning. Do not celebrate yet, while the immediate threat has passed. The journey to Earth took 5 days through hyperspace. 5 days of cramped quarters, nervous refugees, and constant fear that the consortium would discover their true destination. The Eternal Dawn moved through space like a ghost, its ancient stealth systems hiding them from sensors that wouldn't be invented for another 1,000 years. Hana spent most of those days in the archive room Ji-won had set up, learning about the empire she had supposedly inherited. The more she learned, the less she wanted the responsibility. The first human empire lasted for 7,000 years, Ji-won explained, displaying images of worlds Hana couldn't name. At its height, it controlled 400 galaxies. Humans were everywhere, and they brought everyone else along with them. Brought them or forced them? Hana asked. Ji-won hesitated. Both, probably. The records show incredible acts of generosity, species saved from extinction, civilizations uplifted from primitive conditions, knowledge shared freely. But there are also records of conquest, of resistance crushed, of worlds that refused human rule and suffered for it. So we were tyrants. You were complex, like any civilization with that much power. Ji-won pulled up an image of Earth, blue and green and beautiful. But something happened. About 11,000 years ago, the empire began tearing itself apart. The records call it the fracturing. Mirai entered the room carrying a data pad. I've been cross-referencing our records with consortium archives. The fracturing wasn't just a civil war. It was a choice, a deliberate decision by the empire's leadership to destroy everything they'd built. Why would they do that? Doyen asked. He had been listening quietly, trying to understand the weight his friend was carrying. Because they realized they'd become what they feared most, Mirai said. The absolute power corrupted them absolutely. There are records of emperors who saw themselves as gods, of genetic engineering projects that created super soldiers who couldn't disobey, of entire species modified to worship humans as divine beings. The good people who were left looked at what they'd become and decided it had to end, so they committed suicide, Hana said quietly. The whole civilization just gave up. They scattered the population across the galaxy, destroyed most technology, erased the records, made sure humanity could never again accumulate that kind of power. It was the greatest act of sacrifice in galactic history. Ji-won's eyes were wet. They chose to become nothing so they couldn't become monsters again. Hana felt sick. And I'm trying to wake it all back up. No, Ji-won said firmly. You're trying to give humanity a chance to survive. There's a difference between surviving and conquering. We don't have to repeat our ancestors' mistakes. The consortium doesn't see it that way. To them, any human with access to First Empire technology is a threat that has to be eliminated. Mirai nodded, which is why reaching the Prime Nexus is critical. If you can access the full historical records, you might find something we can use. Evidence, leverage, something to prove we're not trying to rebuild the Empire. An alarm chimed softly. The ship's AI spoke. Captain, we are approaching Earth quarantine zone. Recommend transition to maximum stealth. Hana moved to the bridge. Through the viewing screen, she saw the blue curve of Earth growing larger. Her heart hammered against her ribs. This was humanity's birth world, the place where it all began, thousands of years before history as she knew it. Quarantine defenses detected, the AI reported. Consortium automated defense platforms surrounding the planet. Approximately 4,000 units. They are configured to destroy any vessel attempting to breach quarantine. Can we get through? Affirmative. Their technology is significantly inferior to this vessel's capabilities. However, if we are detected, they will alert Consortium Command. Do it. Get us through without being detected. The Eternal Dawn slipped between defense platforms like a fish through a net. Hana watched the automated systems pass within meters of the ship, their sensors blind to the vessel's presence. The ancient stealth technology worked perfectly. They descended through Earth's atmosphere, and Hana got her first real look at the birth world. It was beautiful and heartbreaking at the same time. Vast oceans, green continents, white clouds, but no cities. No lights at night. No signs of advanced civilization. Just forests and plains and small settlements scattered across the land. The Prime Nexus is located beneath the Korean peninsula, Ji-won said, reading from her datapad. Specifically under what used to be a major city. The records call it Seoul. They landed in a forest clearing, the Eternal Dawn's adaptive camouflage making it nearly invisible. Hana, Doyen, Mirai, and Ji-won prepared to disembark. The rest of the refugees would stay aboard, hidden and safe. "Captain," the ship's AI said, "be advised that the Prime Nexus may contain security systems I cannot predict. Recommend caution." Hana smiled despite her nerves. "We'll be careful." The air outside was clean in a way Hana had never experienced. Station air was always recycled, always tasting slightly of metal and machinery. But here the wind carried scents of earth and growing things. Birds sang in the trees. It felt like home, even though she'd never been here before. They hiked for 2 hours, following coordinates from Jiwon's datapad. The land was hilly, covered in thick forest. In the distance, Hana could see what looked like stone ruins, remnants of the ancient city reclaimed by nature. "Humans live here, right?" Doyen asked. "On the surface?" "About 3 million of them," Mireille replied. "They've regressed to approximately medieval-level technology. The consortium monitors them but doesn't interfere. Part of the quarantine treaty. Do they remember anything? About what they used to be? Legends, maybe. Stories of sky cities and ancient gods, but nothing real. The fracturing was very thorough. They reached the ruins of Seoul as the sun began to set. Massive foundations jutted from the earth like bones. Roads that had once carried vehicles now served as game trails for deer. Buildings that had touched the clouds were now just scattered stones covered in moss. Jiwon checked her pad. The Prime Nexus entrance should be there. She pointed at what looked like a hillside covered in trees. Hana approached and placed her hand against the earth. Nothing happened. She tried different spots, searching for any kind of response. Still nothing. Maybe the systems are too old, Doyen suggested. Or damaged. But Hana felt something, a pull like instinct. She walked to a specific point and knelt down. Beneath the soil and roots, she felt stone. She brushed dirt away, revealing carved symbols. The same patterns as the emblem. The moment her fingers touched the stone, the hillside began to move. Trees swayed as the earth beneath them shifted. A doorway opened, revealing stairs leading down into darkness. Lights flickered on along the walls, old but still functional. "Well," Mireille said, checking her weapon. "That's dramatic. They descended into the earth." The stairs went deep, far deeper than seemed possible. Hana counted 500 steps before they finally reached a corridor. Like Nexus Station Prime, the walls were carved with symbols and patterns. But these felt older, more important. This place had been built first. Everything else had come after. The corridor led to a massive chamber. At its center stood another throne, larger and more elaborate than the one on Nexus Station Prime. But this throne wasn't on a platform. It was at the bottom of a depression, like a valley, and the walls around it were covered in screens and displays showing images Hana couldn't process. "It's a memorial," Jiwon whispered. "Look." The screens showed battles, celebrations, births, deaths, moments from the Empire's history playing on an endless loop. Hana saw humans in armor standing beside alien allies. She saw children playing in cities that touched the stars. She saw an old man wearing a crown, tears running down his face, signing a document with shaking hands. "That's the last emperor," Jiwon said. "The one who ordered the fracturing." Hana walked down the slope toward the throne. As she got closer, more screens activated. These showed different images, simulations of possible futures, branching paths, choices, and consequences stretching thousands of years into theoretical time. A voice spoke, different from the custodian. This one sounded old, tired, but kind. "Welcome, child of the bloodline. I am the final guardian. I was created to test those who would seek to reclaim what was lost." "I'm not trying to reclaim anything," Hana said. "I just want to understand. Understanding is the first step to wisdom. But wisdom without testing is merely knowledge. Sit air. We have much to discuss and time grows short." Hana sat on the throne. The moment she did, the world changed. She was no longer in the chamber. She stood in a city, beautiful and terrible, watching it burn. People screamed. Ships fell from the sky, and she understood. This was memory, recorded from the fracturing itself. "This is what absolute power creates," the final guardian said, its voice echoing around her. "Not intentionally, not through evil, but inevitably. The more power concentrates, the more it corrupts. Your ancestors learned this lesson at the cost of everything they loved." The scene changed. Now Hana stood in a council chamber. Humans argued, screamed at each other, made impossible choices. She heard fragments of debate. "If we don't stop ourselves, someone else will. Better we die by our own hand than become what we despise." Think of the children. Think of what we're leaving them. The scene changed again. Jiwon put a hand on her shoulder. None of us asked for the history we're Bo. The Terra Covenant station was nothing like the ancient glory of Nexus Station Prime. It was cramped, patched together from salvaged parts running on generators that hummed too loudly and lights that flickered, but it was filled with something Hana had rarely seen in human spaces. Hope. Jiwon led them through narrow corridors lined with data storage units and old displays. We've been collecting information for 2 centuries. Every legend, every fragment, every piece of technology we could find. Most of it was corrupted or incomplete. We had maybe 5% of the real picture. She stopped at a door that opened into a large room. Screens covered every wall showing images and text and star maps. Dozens of people worked at terminals, sorting through data. And now, Hana asked, now we're accessing the Nexus network through your activation signal. In the past 6 hours, we've downloaded more real history than we found in 200 years. We're learning things about humanity that we never dared imagine. Mireille was already at a terminal, her fingers flying across holographic keys. The consortium's response is what we expected. Emergency council meeting. Security alerts across all core worlds. They're calling it a Category Omega event. What does that mean? Doyen asked. It means they're scared, Mireille said without looking up. Really scared. Category Omega is reserved for extinction-level threats. That's what they consider you now, Hana. Not just a problem. An existential danger. Hana felt cold. I only activated defensive systems. I didn't attack anyone. You proved humans have access to ancient weapons. That's enough. Mireille pulled up a document on the screen written in a flowing script that looked both alien and familiar. This is from the consortium's founding archives. Listen to this. The makers who fell must never rise again. Their return would unmake all we have built. Protocols must be established. Prevention must be eternal. The makers who fell, Jiwon repeated quietly. That's what they called humans. Your ancestors didn't just conquer species. They created them. Uplifted them from primitive life to starfaring civilizations. The Velkesh, the Quinn, the Tar, all of them exist because humans made them exist. Hana sat down heavily. Why would we do that? Maybe kindness. Maybe loneliness. Maybe they wanted subjects or allies or children. Jiwon pulled up images of different alien species. But here's what matters. When the first human empire collapsed, all those created species suddenly had freedom. They built the consortium partly to prevent humans from ever having that kind of power again. So what do they have planned? Hana asked. How do they stop me? Mireille's expression darkened. Something called the Erasure Protocol. I found references to it before I defected, but I never knew what it was. Now we're pulling data from deep consortium archives through backdoors I installed years ago. She pulled up another file, this one heavily encrypted. It's a weapon system, built by the consortium's founders specifically to eliminate human genetic markers from existence if humanity ever awakened. The room went silent. They can do that? Doyen whispered. Just erase us? It's reality-warping technology. The kind of thing that cost entire star systems to build. They constructed it over thousands of years, hiding the pieces across the galaxy. If they activate it, every human everywhere dies simultaneously. No warning, no escape. Just gone. Hana stood up, her hands shaking. Then why haven't they already used it? Because it's not perfect, Mireille said. Using it would destabilize reality in unpredictable ways. It might work, or it might destroy the galaxy. It's a last resort. But make no mistake, if they think you're going to activate the full Nexus network, they'll use it. So I'm trapped. If I do nothing, humanity stays subjugated forever. If I do something, they kill us all. Jiwon put a hand on Hana's arm. There might be another way. The Nexus network isn't just weapons. It's knowledge, technology, medical advances, everything the old empire discovered. If you could share that without threatening the consortium's power, they won't accept that, Mireille interrupted. They can't. The moment humans have access to First Empire technology, the power balance shifts. Some consortium species would side with you. Others would panic. It would tear the galaxy apart. An alarm blared. Everyone in the room froze. A young man at a communications terminal shouted, "Consortium hunter fleet incoming." They tracked something. They're 30 minutes out. Impossible, Mireille said, running to check his data. Her face went pale. They tagged your ship. Somehow, they put a tracker on the Eternal Dawn. The station's defenses can't handle a hunter fleet, Jiwan said quickly. We need to evacuate. Doyen was already moving. How many people? 247, Jiwan replied. Most in cold sleep in the lower sections. All our research, all our history, we can't leave it behind. Hana made a decision. Everyone onto the Eternal Dawn. Bring whatever data you can carry. Move. The next 20 minutes were chaos. People ran through corridors carrying storage drives and equipment. The cold sleep pods were opened, releasing historians and researchers who had been sleeping for years, waiting for a breakthrough that had finally come. The Eternal Dawn's cargo bays filled with people and equipment. Mirai coordinated the evacuation like the military officer she used to be, calm and efficient. Doyen helped the elderly and injured aboard. Jiwan clutched a data core to her chest like a child, her life's work compressed into one piece of technology. Hana stood on the Eternal Dawn's bridge, watching the consortium fleet approach on sensors. 6 warships, heavily armed, designed specifically for hunting and killing. They would tear through the Terra Covenant station like paper. Everyone aboard, Captain, the ship's AI reported. Recommend immediate departure. Wait, Hana said. She opened a channel to the custodian back at Nexus Station Prime. Are you there? I am always here, Air. Can you destroy that tracker on my ship? Negative. The tracker is quantum entangled. Removing it would require specialized equipment you do not currently possess. Then they'll always find me. Correct, unless you activate more of the Nexus network. With greater authority access, you could command facilities with the necessary technology. Hana closed her eyes. Or I could just run. Take these people somewhere safe and hide. Hiding is not survival. The consortium will hunt you until you are found, or until you activate defenses sufficient to prevent capture. There is no middle path, Air. You must choose. The consortium fleet was 15 minutes away now. Hana looked at the faces around her bridge. Doyen, worried but trusting. Mirai calculating odds. Jiwan, hopeful despite everything. 247 people who had given their lives to remembering what humanity used to be. Custodian, if I activate more of the network, can I control what comes online? Choose specific facilities? Yes. With proper command protocols, you can selectively activate installations. However, each activation sends a signal. The more you wake up, the more attention you attract. But I don't have to activate everything at once? Correct. Hana took a breath. Then here's what we do. I activate facilities in a path leading away from this sector. Create a trail for them to follow. While they're chasing ghosts, we go somewhere they won't expect. Where? Mirai asked. Earth. You said the Prime Nexus is there, right? The Master Control System? Jiwan gasped. Earth is quarantined. The consortium has kept it sealed for thousands of years. It's a primitive world now, barely medieval-level technology. Exactly. They won't expect me to go there. And if I can reach the Prime Nexus, I can fully understand what I'm dealing with before making any more decisions. Mirai nodded slowly. It could work. Earth is protected by the Quarantine Treaty. The consortium can't bring major military forces there without breaking their own laws. But getting past the quarantine, the Eternal Dawn has stealth capabilities, Hana said. We can slip through. Captain, the ship's AI interrupted. Consortium fleet is 10 minutes away. Recommend decision. Hana placed her hand on the command console. The emblem pattern appeared beneath her palm, responding to her touch. Custodian, I'm ready. Activate facilities in sectors 7 through 12. Create a pattern that looks like I'm running toward the outer rim. Confirmed. Activating designated facilities. Warning, this will significantly increase consortium response. Across the galaxy, ancient stations came to life. Defense platforms, research facilities, supply depots, all dormant for millennia, all suddenly awake and broadcasting their activation. The consortium would see it like a trail of breadcrumbs leading away from Terra Covenant Station. It's done, the custodian said. Multiple consortium fleets are now moving to intercept the activated facilities. Eternal Dawn, get us out of here. Set course for Earth. Use every stealth system you have. The ship launched just as the consortium hunter fleet arrived. Hana watched on the rear sensors as they swarmed the Terra Covenant Station, tearing it apart looking for survivors. But the Eternal Dawn was already gone, slipping through hyperspace on a path that wouldn't show up on any scanner. Jiwan stood beside Hana, watching the station that had been her home for decades disappear. 200 years of hiding gone in minutes. I'm sorry, Hana said. Don't be. We built that place to preserve the past. But maybe it's time to stop preserving and start reclaiming. Jiwan managed a tired smile. Besides, we're going to Earth, the birth world. The teacher. The emblem burned cold beneath Hana's palm. She felt something flow from the throne into her body. Not painful, but strange, like electricity running through water. The custodian's voice remained calm while alarms screamed around them. Nexus network activation requires royal genetic verification, voice command, and conscious intent. All three conditions are met. Warning activation cannot be reversed. Once begun, all dormant facilities across the galaxy will respond to your authority. Through the viewing screen, Hana watched the consortium fleet tighten their formation. More ships were arriving every minute. Commander Velthar's face filled multiple displays, his voice booming through the station speakers. Final warning, human. Step away from that terminal. This technology is not yours to claim. Hana's finger hovered over the emblem's center. Her whole life she had been taught that humans were lucky to have what little they had. That they should be grateful for the scraps the consortium allowed them. That they had no history worth remembering. All of it was a lie. Custodian, can you activate just some of the network? Just enough to defend this station? Partial activation is possible but carries significant risk. The network was designed as a complete system. Fragmentary activation may cause cascading failures or unintended responses. But it's possible? Yes, Hana pressed down on the emblem. Then do it. Activate defensive systems only. 3 sectors around the station. Light exploded from the throne. The emblem's patterns spun and rearranged themselves. Hana felt the station wake up fully beneath her, like a sleeping dragon opening its eyes. Power surged through systems that had been dark for thousands of years. Activation confirmed. Defensive Protocol 7 initiated. Range 3 sectors. Estimated facilities responding 47. Across the viewing screens, Hana watched stars flicker. Ancient platforms hidden in asteroid fields and dead worlds came online. Weapons that had slept since before the consortium existed charged their systems. Defense satellites emerged from camouflage that had lasted millennia. Commander Velthar's expression changed from anger to shock. What have you done? All ships, defensive positions. But the ancient weapons didn't fire. They simply existed, targeting systems locked on the consortium fleet, waiting for orders that Hana didn't give. This is your only warning, Hana said, surprised by the steadiness in her own voice. Leave this sector. We don't want war. We just want to be left alone. For a long moment, nobody moved. The consortium fleet hung in space, faced with technology they didn't understand and couldn't fight. Hana held her breath, waiting for them to make the choice that would decide everything. All ships, Velthar finally said, his voice tight with fury. Withdraw to safe distance, but this isn't over, human. The consortium will respond. The fleet pulled back and Hana felt her legs give out. She collapsed into the throne, shaking. What had she just done, Hana? Doyen's voice cracked through her helmet. What happened? The scanners went crazy and now there are weapons everywhere. I'm coming back to the ship. We need to leave now. But the custodian interrupted. I must advise against departing in your current vessel. Consortium forces are withdrawing, but will likely pursue once you leave the protection of defensive systems. May I suggest an alternative? What alternative? Docking Bay 7 contains the Eternal Dawn, a royal escort vessel. It is fully functional and significantly more capable than your salvage craft. Hana laughed despite everything. A royal ship? You're joking. I do not possess humor programming. 10 minutes later, Hana stood in a docking bay the size of a city block, staring up at the Eternal Dawn. The ship was beautiful, sleek where consortium vessels were bulky, elegant where modern ships were utilitarian. It looked deadly and graceful at the same time, like a sword made of starlight. Doyen had docked their salvage ship and stood beside her, his mouth hanging open. This is impossible. Technology this advanced doesn't exist. It did exist, Hana said quietly. We just forgot. They boarded the Eternal Dawn together. The interior was pristine, as if the ship had been built yesterday rather than thousands of years ago. Holographic displays activated as Hana entered the bridge, recognizing her genetic signature. The pilot's chair adjusted to fit her body. Welcome aboard, Captain, a different AI voice said. This one sounded younger than the custodian, almost cheerful. I am the Eternal Dawn's operating system. It's wonderful to finally have a captain again. Can you fly yourself? Hana asked. I can operate all systems autonomously, though I perform optimally with crew input. May I suggest immediate departure? Consortium vessels are regrouping. Do it. Get us out of here. The Eternal Dawn launched with barely a tremor. Through the viewing screens, Hana watched Nexus Station Prime disappear behind them. The ancient defense platforms tracked their departure, but didn't interfere. The consortium fleet kept its distance, watching but not attacking. Where do we go? Doyen asked, strapped into the co-pilot's seat. His hands hovered over controls he didn't understand. Hana had no answer. They were being hunted now. Every human who learned what she had done would either see her as a hero or a threat. The consortium would never stop looking for her. Her communication panel blinked. An incoming message encrypted from an unknown source. Hana hesitated, then opened it. A woman's face appeared, human, probably in her 50s, with sharp eyes and gray hair. My name is Jiwon. If you're receiving this, you've activated something from the old empire. Don't respond to this message. They're tracking everything. Just come to these coordinates. A star map flashed across the screen, showing a location in neutral space. I've spent my whole life studying what we used to be, Jiwon continued. I can help you understand what you've found. More importantly, I can help you survive what comes next. The consortium has been waiting for this day. They have plans you can't imagine. Come to the coordinates, please. The message ended. It could be a trap, Doyen said. Everything's a trap now, Hana replied. But we need help. We need someone who understands all of this better than we do. Eternal Dawn, can you get us to these coordinates without being tracked? Yes, Captain. This vessel possesses stealth capabilities far beyond current galactic technology. The consortium will not be able to follow us. Then take us there. The ship jumped to faster than light speed, and the stars stretched into lines around them. Hana sat in the captain's chair, trying to process everything that had happened. 6 hours ago, she had been a salvage worker with nothing but debts and dreams. Now she was sitting on a throne, commanding ancient weapons, being hunted by the most powerful military force in the galaxy. Hana, Doyen said quietly, that thing the custodian said about humans having an empire. About us ruling the galaxy. Do you believe it? Hana looked at the ship around them, at technology that shouldn't exist, at her own reflection in the dark viewing screen. I don't know what I believe anymore, but I know what I saw. Those records weren't fake. This ship isn't fake. The weapons aren't fake, so what do? We learn the truth, all of it. And then we decide what happens next. They traveled for hours through hyperspace before the Eternal Dawn dropped back into normal space near a small asteroid field. The coordinates Jiwon had sent led to a hidden station buried inside a hollowed-out asteroid. It was old but not ancient, built within the last few centuries using human and alien technology mixed together. This is the Terra Covenant station. Jiwon's voice came over the communication channel. You're safe here. We've been hidden from the consortium for 200 years. Hana docked the Eternal Dawn in a bay designed for much smaller ships. The elegant vessel barely fit. As she and Doyen descended the boarding ramp, they found themselves surrounded by humans, dozens of them, young and old, watching with expressions of awe and fear. Jiwon stood at the front of the group. She looked older in person, tired but determined. I never thought I'd see the day. We've spent generations searching for any intact facility from the old empire. You found one and activated it. Who are you people? Hana asked. Historians, archaeologists, dreamers. We're the ones who refused to believe humans were always nothing. We collected stories and fragments and legends. Most people thought we were crazy. Jiwon smiled sadly. Turns out we weren't crazy enough. We thought we'd find ruins and records. We never imagined the old systems were still functional. Another woman stepped forward, taller than Jiwon, with military bearing and cold eyes. My name is Mire. I used to work for Consortium Intelligence before I learned the truth and defected. The Consortium knows about your species' history. They've always known. They've spent thousands of years making sure humanity never remembered. Why? Doyen asked. If we're no threat, why go through all that trouble? Mirai's smile was bitter. Because you were never no threat. You were the biggest threat. The first human empire didn't just rule the galaxy. It built the galaxy. Half the species in the consortium were created or uplifted by humans. The other half were conquered by you. When your empire fell, everyone else finally got a chance to be in charge. They're not going to give that up without a fight. Hana felt the weight of those words settle on her shoulders. The emblem had recognized her DNA. The custodian had called her heir. But heir to what? A dead empire? A forgotten glory? Or something else entirely? I didn't ask for any of this, she said quietly. The salvage ship drifted through the debris field like a metal insect picking through bones. Hana pressed her face against the viewing port, watching chunks of ancient warships tumble past in the darkness. She had been doing this job for 3 years now, and the excitement had long since faded into routine. Another dead sector, Doyen muttered from the pilot's seat. We're wasting fuel out here. Hana turned away from the window. Her reflection stared back at her from the dark glass. Tired eyes, dirt on her cheek, hair tied back in a messy knot. She looked like what she was, a human trying to survive in a galaxy that didn't care about her kind. Humans were nothing special in the year 2847. They worked the jobs nobody else wanted. They lived in the stations nobody else claimed. They were scattered across hundreds of worlds, always on the bottom, always looking up at the other species who ruled the Galactic Consortium. Wait, Hana said, squinting at her scanner. There's something big ahead. Really big. Doyen leaned forward, checking his own instruments. His eyes widened. That can't be right. The scanner says it's a station, but the size is impossible. Let's take a closer look, Hana said. We're in a restricted zone. Hana, the Dead Emperor's Belt. Nobody comes here. Which means nobody will know we took a look. Doyen sighed but adjusted their course. He knew better than to argue when Hana made up her mind. They had been friends since childhood, growing up in the same cramped human colony on the edge of Consortium space. He was cautious where she was bold, careful where she took risks. Somehow they balanced each other. The station emerged from the darkness like a sleeping giant. It was enormous, easily the size of a small moon. Strange architecture covered its surface. Towers and domes and structures that looked almost familiar but impossibly ancient. The metal was dark, covered in the dust of ages, but intact. Waiting. This predates the Consortium, Doyen whispered. This is old. Really old. Hana was already suiting up. I'm going in. Absolutely not. We report this, collect the finder's fee, and leave. And let the Consortium claim it? When do humans ever get the finder's fee, Doyen? They'll take it and give us nothing. She had a point, and they both knew it. The Consortium had rules, but those rules rarely protected humans. Hana crossed through the airlock and pushed off toward the station. Her magnetic boots clanked against the hull as she landed. Up close, the metal looked even stranger. There were patterns etched into it, almost like writing, but in no language she recognized. Her gloved hand traced the symbols. Hana, your suit camera is glitching. Doyen's voice crackled in her helmet. I'm getting weird readings. Everything looks fine from here, she said, moving toward what looked like an entrance. The door was massive, sealed tight. Hana searched for a control panel but found nothing. She was about to give up when her hand brushed against a small panel beside the door. It lit up at her touch, glowing with soft blue light. The door opened. Hana's heart hammered in her chest as she stepped inside. Emergency lights flickered on one by one, revealing a corridor that stretched into the distance. The air was stale but breathable. Her suit sensors confirmed it was safe. Doyen, the station has power. It's responding to me. Get out of there now, this is wrong. But Hana kept walking. The corridor led to a grand hall, bigger than any space she had ever seen inside a station. The ceiling was so high it disappeared into shadow. Columns rose on either side, carved with more of those strange symbols. At the far end, on a raised platform, stood a throne. Hana walked toward it like a woman in a dream. The throne was made of dark metal and crystal, beautiful and terrifying at the same time. Embedded in the armrest was a symbol, a circular emblem with geometric patterns that seemed to shift in the light. She reached out and touched it. The world exploded into light and sound. Hana fell backward, crying out, but the light followed her. It wrapped around her, scanning her, reading something she couldn't understand. Words appeared in the air, projected in glowing letters. Some were in English, some were in Korean. Languages she recognized but somehow looked ancient. Different from how they were written now. DNA recognized. Origin, Earth classification, royal bloodline, authority level, absolute. The hall came alive. Lights blazed everywhere. Machinery hummed to life after sleeping for thousands of years. Screens flickered on, showing star maps and data streams and information in dozens of languages. A voice spoke, deep and calm, neither male nor female. Welcome, heir of the First Empire. This facility has awaited your return for 11,417 years. Hana scrambled to her feet. What are you? What is this place? I am the custodian. This is Nexus Station Prime, command center of the First Human Empire's outer territories. You carry the genetic markers of the royal bloodline. By ancient law, you are recognized as legitimate authority. Human Empire? Hana laughed, but it sounded broken even to her own ears. Humans don't have an empire. We barely have colonies. Current data indicates significant population decline and cultural regression, the custodian acknowledged. This is concerning. Accessing historical records. Holographic images filled the air around Hana. She saw worlds, hundreds, thousands of worlds, great cities that touched the clouds, ships that dwarfed anything in the modern galaxy, and humans. Humans everywhere, not as workers or refugees, but as rulers, as conquerors, as emperors. This can't be real, Hana whispered. Historical records confirm authenticity. The first human empire spanned 400 galaxies at its height. Earth was the throne world. Humanity uplifted 17 species and created advanced civilizations across known space. The Galactic Consortium's founding species were all subjects or allies of the First Empire. What happened? Where did it go? Catastrophic civil war. The fracturing. Details are fragmented, but records indicate humanity chose self-destruction over continued conflict. The empire was deliberately dismantled. Records were erased. Colonies were abandoned. Technology was locked away. This was done to prevent total extinction. Hana's legs felt weak. She sat down on the throne without thinking, and the moment she did, more systems activated. The emblem on the armrest glowed brighter, responding to her genetic signature. You now have command authority over this facility and all connected systems, the custodian said. Do you wish to activate the Nexus network? What's the Nexus network? A galaxy-spanning system of facilities, weapons, and archives, all dormant, all awaiting royal authority to reactivate. Before Hana could respond, alarms blared. Doyen's panicked voice filled her helmet. Hana, consortium ships just dropped out of hyperspace. A whole fleet. They're surrounding the station. Hana ran to a viewing screen. Sure enough, dozens of warships hung in space around the station, weapons powered and ready. A communication channel opened and an alien face appeared. Commander Velthar, his scaled features twisted in anger. Human scavenger. You have violated restricted space and activated forbidden technology. Surrender immediately or be destroyed. Hana looked at the throne, at the emblem, at the custodian's glowing interface. What do I do? That decision belongs to you, heir. You may surrender and allow this knowledge to remain buried, or you may claim your birthright. But be warned, activating the Nexus network will alert every power in the galaxy. There is no middle path. Hana closed her eyes. She thought about every human colony struggling to survive, every child who grew up believing they were worth less than other species, every time she had been told that humans were nothing special. Maybe they weren't special, but maybe they had been. Once, and maybe they could be again. She opened her eyes and placed her hand on the emblem. Tell me how to activate it.